"Can you be my mommy?" begged the little girl to the waitress. While her billionaire dad froze in place, the entire restaurant went silent. Forks stopped mid-air. The little girl, no older than 6, looked up with trembling lips and tear-filled eyes, her tiny hands clutching the apron of a woman she had met less than an hour ago. The waitress, her name was Lena, froze too, her heart caught between shock and instinct. She looked down at the child, then up at the tall man in the tailored navy suit standing just a few feet away. His face was unreadable, but his jaw clenched once, the kind of subtle, controlled reaction that revealed how much emotion he fought to suppress. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because some stories remind us that love comes from where we least expect it. The man's name was Adrian Moreau. He was a billionaire investor, known for precision, efficiency, and ice-cold logic, the kind of man who measured everything in profit and loss. He had built an empire from nothing, yet somehow managed to lose everything that wasn't material: warmth, softness, laughter. Since his wife's death 4 years ago, he had sealed his world behind glass walls and perfectly timed calendars. Until today. Lena had only been working at the seaside cafe for 2 weeks. She was 27, living in a small apartment above a bookstore and supporting her younger brother through college. She wasn't supposed to be there that morning. Another waitress had called in sick, and Lena had come in early to help cover breakfast service. Adrian had arrived precisely at 9 with his daughter Clara. They sat at their usual corner table, quiet, efficient, isolated. He ordered black coffee and oatmeal. She had pancakes, but didn't eat much. Lena noticed things others didn't. The girl's eyes were too old for her age. The man's voice, calm and deep, carried exhaustion rather than anger. And every time Clara tried to speak, he responded with gentle correction. Never cruelty, just absence. Lena approached with a soft smile. "Is everything all right with your breakfast, sweetheart?" Clara hesitated, then whispered, "It's good." Adrian barely looked up from his phone. "She's fine, thank you." But as Lena turned away, she caught something. Clara watching her, studying her face the way a lost traveler studies a map. It was only when she returned with a refill that it happened. Clara tugged her sleeve and said the words that shattered the quiet order of Adrian Moreau's world. "Can you be my mommy?" Every head in the cafe turned. Lena froze mid-step. Adrian's phone slipped from his hand, clattering onto the marble table. He stood abruptly, eyes wide for the first time in years. "Clara," his voice cracked slightly, not out of anger, but something far more complicated. The little girl shrank back, confused by her father's tone. She's nice. You're always sad, Daddy. But she smiled at you." Lena knelt beside her. "Hey, sweetheart," she said gently. "I'm sure your mommy loved you very much." Clara shook her head. "I don't remember her. Daddy never talks about her." Adrian's voice dropped, quiet but sharp. "That's enough." Lena stood, heart pounding. "I didn't mean to," he interrupted. "You didn't. He stopped himself, his composure returning like armor sliding back into place. He glanced around, aware of the watching eyes. "I'll take the check." Lena handed it to him silently. He paid without counting, then took Clara's hand and turned to leave. But at the door, Clara looked back, eyes full of something that broke Lena's chest open. Hope. Hours later, after the lunch rush faded, Lena still couldn't shake it. She'd seen hundreds of customers come and go, but never something like that. A little girl aching for warmth, and a man who looked like he'd forgotten what it felt like to give it. She went to the back office to clock out, but the manager waved her over. "Lena, you've got a visitor." She frowned, stepping back into the dining area. Adrian stood there, alone this time, hands in his pockets, looking strangely uncertain for a man used to owning every room he entered. "I owe you an apology," he said. Lena blinked. "For what? For what happened this morning?" "My daughter," he paused, exhaling. "She's been through a lot. I should have handled it differently." Lena offered a small smile. "You're her father. You handled it the best you could." He studied her for a long moment, as if trying to decode her calm. "You spoke to her like you knew what she needed." "I was raised by my older sister," Lena replied softly. "Sometimes when you don't have much, you learn fast what love sounds like." Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, maybe even pain. "You're perceptive," she shrugged. "Part of the job." Adrian nodded slowly, as if weighing a decision. "Would you be willing to—" He stopped himself, awkward for the first time in years. "I'm hosting a small charity dinner tomorrow. Clara doesn't do well in crowds. She likes you. If you're available, I'd like to hire you to help." Lena hesitated. Hire me? He nodded. Just for the evening, you'd be compensated, of course. She smiled faintly. You don't have to pay me to be kind to your daughter. His lips parted, surprised by the simplicity of her answer. But before he could respond, the door opened behind him, and Clara ran in, clutching a sketchbook. Daddy, look! She ran straight past him to Lena, holding up a crayon drawing. 2 stick figures, one tall, one smaller, both holding hands with a third figure between them, smiling under a yellow sun. That's you, she said, pointing at Lena. And that's Daddy. And me. Adrian froze again. Lena's throat tightened. It's beautiful, Clara. The girl beamed. I made it for you. Adrian looked at the drawing, then at Lena, and for the first time something in his perfectly guarded face cracked, a hint of guilt, a flicker of longing. He murmured almost to himself, she hasn't drawn her mother in years. Lena looked at him, really looked, and saw not the billionaire everyone admired, but a man haunted by silence and loss. And though she didn't know it yet, this moment, a child's innocent plea, a stranger's compassion, and a father's frozen heart, was about to change all 3 of their lives forever. Because behind the walls Adrian had built to keep the world out, something small and unstoppable had begun to bloom. Warmth, and it carried Lena's name. The invitation arrived on a white card that looked too heavy to be paper. Charity dinner, Bayview Tower, cocktail at 7. Lena turned it over 3 times before tucking it back into the cafe's apron pocket, as if the card might evaporate if she stared too long. She had said yes because Clara's eyes had made it impossible to say anything else. But every hour that passed drew the line bolder between their worlds. Rich man, poor woman, a class difference romance no sensible person would provoke. At 6:45, she stood in the elevator of Bayview Tower, clutching a borrowed clutch and wearing a simple midnight blue dress her sister had pressed smooth with a hair straightener. The elevator hummed upward, glass walls revealing a city glittering like a constellation at her feet. When the doors opened, the penthouse unfolded in warm lamps and soft strings, linen and crystal, an ocean of well-dressed strangers arranged like a scene from a billionaire love story where she didn't belong. Miss Lena, a woman stepped forward, immaculate in a silver sheath, a smile as polished as steel. Miranda Vale, I run communications for Mr. Moreau. Hi. Lena tried not to wring her hands. Miranda's eyes flicked over the dress, the borrowed clutch, the nerves. Thank you for coming. Tonight is very important for the Moreau Foundation. A pause. Please remember, this is a professional event. Of course. Wonderful. Miranda's smile didn't move her eyes. If Clara becomes overstimulated, there's a quiet room off the music salon. Mr. Moreau cares very much, we all do. Lena followed her gaze and saw him then, Adrian by the windows, a dark figure cut against the winter sky, listening to a donor with the stillness of a man who had taught himself to be a statue. His cufflinks caught the light, his face did not. She felt the old ache of him, how grief could sculpt a fortress. Lena. Clara whirled out of a circle of adults, skidding on polished floors like a small comet, barreling into her with the force of joy. You came. I promised, didn't I? Clara seized her hand. Come see the chocolate fountain. Daddy says it's a bribe. An honest one, Adrian said, suddenly beside them, warmth edging his voice. Thank you for coming. Lena nodded, trying not to drown in the closeness of him, cologne like cedar and rain, the fine lines at his eyes. You asked, she said, which was true and not the whole truth. He inclined his head, the smallest surrender. If she needs quiet, we have a music room, I know. Lena smiled. Miranda briefed me, thoroughly. Something like humor touched his mouth. She's very good at thorough. A server drifted by. Voices rose and fell. The room's brightness pressed at Clara, and Lena felt the child go taut beside her. Too many strangers, too much dress shoe music. She knelt. Game? She whispered. Clara nodded, hopeful. Name 5 blue things, Lena said softly. Only eyes count twice. Clara's gaze steadied. Window, dress, Daddy's tie, the sea, your earrings, 4 yellow. Lamps, cake star, flower pin, that lady's shoes. Now breathe. Lena held up her fingers. Inhale on 1, exhale on 2. A small ritual to instruct the body that the world wasn't on fire. Adrian watched the tension slide off his daughter's shoulders like a shawl. What did you just do? He asked, wonder unhidden. Gave her proof. The room doesn't own her, Lena said, rising. Counting color anchors. Works for grown-ups too. His gaze held hers a fraction longer than necessary. Something quiet and astonished. Stay near. he said. And if it was a request, it sounded like a promise. They orbited the evening. Donors asking where Lena worked. She answered simply. Investors speaking to Adrian in the language of money, growth, and returns. He answered fluently. She stood at the seam of those worlds, translating the air between them for a girl who preferred pancakes to pitched decks. Each time Elena laughed, Adrian's shoulders loosened a notch. "Adrian," said a man with winter hair and a summer tan, sliding in with the proprietary ease of privilege. "Victor Hargrove, we should discuss your fund's new position in the healthcare vertical, unless you're otherwise occupied." His eyes flicked to Lena, the quick appraisal that called itself harmless. "Later," Adrian said. "This is a night for the Foundation." Victor smiled as if hearing a joke. "Of course, and for optics." His gaze settled on Lena. "You must be the story." Lena's spine pricked. "I'm the person looking out for Clara," she said evenly. Victor lifted a brow. "We're all looking out for something." "Victor," Adrian said, voice cool. "Walk away." Victor did, but not before leaving a small stain of humiliation on the air. Lena could have swallowed it. The city had fed her worse. But Adrian didn't move for a beat, and the beat was long enough to sting. She excused herself with a soft smile and guided Clara toward the music room. Lamps low, a grand piano asleep under its open lid. Here, the air was kind. Clara climbed onto the bench and Lena sat beside her, pressing a key so gently the note arrived like a secret. "Can I try?" Clara asked. "Please." Clara matched the note, another and another, building a small ladder of sound. "Does this make you sad?" she asked suddenly. "Daddy turns away when music plays." Lena considered. "Sometimes music opens a door. If you're not ready, the wind comes in." Clara nodded as if that were weather. She played 2 notes like a heartbeat, and Lena hummed between them, a thread of melody so soft it felt like a vow. Somewhere in the doorway, Adrian turned toward the sound and didn't turn away. They emerged for speeches. Miranda introduced donors with practiced warmth. Adrian quoted statistics about access and futures. The room clapped on cue. When he finished, he looked at Lena, not by accident, and something in the crowd shifted with their glance. A rumor born, a romantic drama seeded in the air. Forbidden love, rich man, poor woman, the machinery that can grind down anyone who doesn't fit. "Ms. Lena," Miranda murmured as the applause died. "A word." She drew her aside, smile pinned. "Thank you for helping tonight. In future, it would be better if you remained with Clara in the quieter spaces. Cameras," she added, delicate as a blade. "Angles." "Understood," Lena said. She did understand. Everything and more. Shame flushed. Not because she'd erred, but because goodness in the wrong room requires permission. Before she could rejoin them, a voice cut through the foyer, light but edged. "Adrian." The room parted. A woman in black stepped forward, elegant as midnight, hair silvering in a way that announced she had chosen not to be young, which is its own kind of power. She didn't look at anyone else. "Evelyn Hart," someone whispered, and then, in a softer undertow, Clara's maternal grandmother. Adrian set down his glass. "Evelyn, I didn't know you were in town." "Donors insisted," she said, and only then did her gaze find Lena. It was not unkind, which somehow made it worse. "You must be the waitress." Lena held her eyes. "I'm Lena." Evelyn inclined her head, acknowledgement without welcome. "My daughter adored this view," she said to Adrian, letting the city burn behind her words. "She used to stand at that window and name the boats. Do you remember?" "Yes," Adrian said quietly. "Every single one." Evelyn's attention migrated to Clara. The child's smile faltered, uncertain. Evelyn softened, kneeling. "Hello, precious girl." Her voice gentled like a hand over silk. "You look so much like your mother." Clara glanced at Lena, then at her father, caught between tidal pools. Evelyn rose, the silk gone. "I'll be plain, Adrian. I've been patient with your grief and your reinventions. But inviting a stranger into my granddaughter's life and parading her at a fundraiser, that is not care. That is spectacle." "It isn't," Adrian said, jaw tight. Lena is not your wife," Evelyn said, not raising her voice, which made the words echo harder. "And she is not this child's mother." She turned, finding Lena again with precise measure. "Whatever this is, end it, kindly, quietly." A small sound broke near the piano, glass tapping marble, a conversation halting mid-laugh. Miranda's breath held. Victor Hargrove's satisfaction glinted. The city seemed to lean closer against the windows. Adrian did not move. Lena felt the old lesson rise, how to retreat with dignity when the door is closed by someone who never intends to open it. She could leave. She should leave, but Clara's fingers had found her dress again. Small anchor in a storm. "Grandma," Clara whispered, not quite to Evelyn. "I asked her to be my mommy because she knows how to make the room quiet." Evelyn's mouth trembled before it stilled. "Your mother made the room quiet too." "Daddy won't talk about her," Clara said, matter of fact as weather. "He gets winter in his eyes." Something raw crossed Adrian's face and vanished. Lena's voice, when it came, was steady. "Ms. Hart, I won't stand between a child and her family, but I won't pretend she didn't ask me for kindness. That's all I'm giving her. Kindness doesn't erase anyone." Evelyn watched her, measuring truth. Then she looked at Adrian, truly looked past the armor. "You haven't told her anything, have you?" He didn't answer, which was answer enough. Evelyn exhaled, grief old as tide. "You loved my daughter in your way, but love that never speaks turns memory into a locked room." She clasped her hands. "For Clara's sake, open it." Silence again. Even the quartet in the corner forgot to play. Then Evelyn's gaze returned to Lena, and the softness was gone. "And as for you, step carefully. This family has been carved by headlines before. I will not watch it be carved again." She turned to leave, then paused in the archway without turning back. "Adrian, if you cannot protect my granddaughter from another public experiment in healing, then tomorrow morning my lawyers will file for partial custody." The door closed. The quartet resumed something in a minor key. Adrian's glass remained on the table, untouched. Clara's hand trembled in Lena's. And high above the city, where the air is thinnest and the lights most beautiful, the three of them stood on the edge of a choice that would not wait for gentler weather. The next morning began with rain that whispered against the penthouse glass, like regret trying to find a way in. Adrian stood before the window, coffee cooling in his hand, the skyline blurred into watercolor. Sleep hadn't come, only Evelyn's words looping in his mind. Love that never speaks turns memory into a locked room. He looked over his shoulder. Clara sat cross-legged on the floor, drawing again, this time a small house under a rainbow. In the corner of the paper, two stick figures held hands with a third, smaller one between them, the same as before. He closed his eyes. "Clara, sweetie," he said softly. "That's beautiful." She smiled, not looking up. "It's us." His throat tightened. "You, me, and Lena?" She nodded, proud. "She makes you less cold." He almost smiled. "Almost. I didn't know I was cold." "You are," she said simply. "But when she talks, you melt a little." That truth landed like a quiet earthquake. When the knock came, Adrian thought for a moment he'd imagined it. He wasn't expecting anyone. But when he opened the door, Lena stood there, umbrella dripping, eyes uncertain but calm. "I didn't come for an apology," she said before he could speak. "I came because Clara forgot her sketchbook." He nodded, stepping aside. "Come in, please." She hesitated, then crossed the threshold, swam into a world built on marble and silence. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for yesterday." "You don't owe me that," Lena replied. "You were protecting your family. That's what good people do." He studied her, the way her presence softened the room. Evelyn was harsh. "She was grieving," Lena said. "Grief doesn't end when the flowers die." Adrian looked away. "I thought I could protect Clara by never mentioning her mother. I didn't want her to see pain." "And instead," Lena said gently, "she saw absence." He blinked, taken aback by the precision of her words, how easily she cut through pretense without cruelty. "I'm not trying to interfere," she added, "but Clara's carrying questions she doesn't have words for. She's asking strangers to fill the silence." He turned to the window again. "I don't know how to fix that." "Start by not fixing," she said softly. "Start by listening." He looked at her, really looked, and something old in him cracked just slightly. Then Clara's voice echoed down the hall. "Lena!" The child ran in barefoot, holding a ribbon in one hand. "You came back. I had to return your sketchbook." Lena smiled. "But I'll stay for tea if your dad says yes." Adrian's lips curved. "She doesn't take orders well, does she?" "Only from tiny dictators," Lena teased, and Clara giggled. They moved to the kitchen, light, modern, filled with stainless steel that reflected the world without ever touching it. But when Lena poured tea, warmth began to pool between them. Clara hummed while stirring sugar. "Daddy, did Mommy like tea?" Adrian froze, the spoon slipping from his fingers. The air changed. Lena stepped in gently. "It's okay," she whispered. He looked down at his daughter, at the question she'd waited years to ask. His voice came out low, hesitant. She loved it. She said tea was like patience. You can't rush it or it goes bitter. Clara smiled. Then you need more tea. Lena laughed softly, and even Adrian's chest eased with something close to relief. After lunch, Lena stood to leave, but Clara clung to her sleeve. Can you come tomorrow? I don't think that's a good idea, Adrian began, but Lena met his eyes and said gently, maybe it's exactly what she needs. He hesitated, and in that hesitation, something shifted. Tomorrow then, he said quietly. That night, Adrian sat in the darkened study surrounded by photos he hadn't looked at in years. A woman smiling beside him, hair caught by the wind, eyes alight with the kind of happiness that once made him believe he could love without losing. He whispered her name, Isabel. The sound of it broke him open. He hadn't spoken it aloud since the day she died. The next afternoon, Lena returned. This time, Clara met her at the door wearing a blue dress and holding 2 teacups. We're playing afternoon cafe, she announced. Daddy has to be the customer. Adrian appeared, trying not to smile. Do I get a discount? Only if you're nice. Lena chuckled. You might have to pay full price then. He raised a brow. Do you always tease billionaires in their own kitchens? Only the ones who pretend they don't need friends. The laughter faded into something quieter, comfortable, intimate. For the first time in years, Adrian didn't check his watch. He didn't think about meetings, mergers, or profit margins. He thought about how Lena's hair caught the light, how Clara's giggles filled the spaces his silence used to live in. Hours slipped by unnoticed, until a message arrived on Adrian's phone. Miranda. Evelyn's lawyers have filed the paperwork. The world tilted. His pulse thudded. Everything all right? Lena asked. He met her eyes. My late wife's mother wants custody of Clara. Lena's breath caught. But why? Because she thinks I'm broken, he said bitterly. And maybe she's right. She stepped closer, her voice firm. You're not broken. You're grieving. There's a difference. But he shook his head. Evelyn doesn't believe in difference. She believes in power. Clara looked up from her drawing. Are we going somewhere, Daddy? Adrian forced a smile. No, sweetheart. We're staying right here. Lena placed a hand on his arm. Brief, steady, grounding. Then fight for that. Not with money, with truth. He didn't answer. But as she left that evening, her words lingered, like the scent of tea, like sunlight after rain. Because for the first time since Isabel's death, Adrian Moreau wasn't thinking about survival. He was thinking about hope. The following week turned into a blur of court documents, phone calls, and restless nights. Every headline that mentioned Adrian's name seemed to dig a little deeper into the hollow space behind his ribs. The press called it the custody war of the year, a phrase that reduced grief, love, and legacy to spectacle. Evelyn Hart's lawyers accused him of emotional neglect, of shielding Clara behind walls of wealth, of raising her in silence. What none of them saw was how every morning before the phone started ringing, Adrian would make tea, 2 cups, and set one in front of the empty chair across from him, Isabel's chair, and then he'd whisper good morning to a woman who was no longer there. Lena didn't see the newspapers. She didn't want to. She only saw Clara, who now waited every afternoon by the cafe door for her break to end. Adrian had asked if she could spend a few hours each day with the girl, and Lena had agreed without hesitation. It's not work, she'd said. It's heart. On the 5th day, she brought a small box of colored chalk. They sat on the marble terrace outside the penthouse, drawing galaxies on stone. Clara drew a big sun, with smiling faces orbiting it. That's you, me, Daddy, and Grandma, she said. Lena smiled. No monsters? Clara shook her head. Just people who forgot how to share the light. The words hit Lena harder than they should have. She looked up, and through the glass, she saw Adrian watching them, motionless as if memorizing a scene he wasn't sure he deserved to enter. That evening, when the stars replaced their chalk, Adrian finally stepped outside. You've turned my terrace into an art gallery, he said quietly. Clara giggled. It's magic dust, it only works with laughter. Then it's priceless, he murmured. Lena smiled, brushing chalk from her hands. You know, for someone who builds empires, you sound like a poet sometimes. He met her gaze. Poetry used to live here, he said, pressing a hand to his chest. Before numbers took the room. Lena's expression softened. Then maybe it's time to invite it back in. He looked at her for a long moment, the night air filled with something unsaid but unmistakable. You make everything sound simple. Kindness usually is, she replied. We're just trained to think it's expensive. Adrian almost laughed, but the sound caught in his throat when his phone buzzed. Evelyn's lawyer again. He turned it off without answering. "Do you think she hates me?" he asked suddenly. "Evelyn?" He nodded. "I think she's scared," Lena said gently. "And fear, when dressed up in righteousness, can look a lot like hate." He exhaled, a slow, shuddering breath. "You should have been a therapist." "I prefer tea," she said, smiling. "Less paperwork." That night, after Clara fell asleep, Adrian found himself unable to focus on the stack of contracts waiting in his study. Instead, he poured 2 cups of tea and sat across from Isabel's photograph again. Only this time, the chair beside him wasn't empty. Lena sat quietly, hands folded around her cup, saying nothing. The silence was no longer hollow. He stared at the photo for a long time. "She would have liked you," he whispered. Lena looked at him, her voice low. "And she would have wanted you to live." His eyes glistened. "You sound certain." "I am," she said. "Love doesn't die with the body, Adrian. It just changes rooms." He turned toward her slowly, the walls inside him shifting like tectonic plates. "Lena, why do you care so much? You barely know me." She held his gaze, steady and unflinching. "Because Clara does. And because I've seen what happens when a person starts believing their pain is their home." He didn't speak. Couldn't. The words felt like light in a place that had forgotten dawn. When Lena rose to leave, he walked her to the elevator. "You've given my daughter her laughter back," he said quietly. "And me, something I don't have a name for yet." She smiled. "Maybe don't name it. Just feel it." The elevator doors began to close, but before they did, he said softly, "Lena." She looked up. "Don't disappear." Her eyes softened. "Only if you promise to start showing up." The doors slid shut. Later that night, Adrian stood on the balcony. The city stretched out like circuitry below. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about money or legacy. He was thinking about a waitress who spoke like she'd known his soul longer than he had, and somewhere deep inside, a decision began to form, quiet but certain. He would fight for Clara, but not just to keep her. He would fight to become the man his daughter believed he still could be, and he knew instinctively that Lena would be part of that battle, whether she wanted to be or not. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and restraint. Reporters lined the hallway outside like vultures waiting for movement. Inside, the air pulsed with the kind of tension that makes even the innocent forget how to breathe. Adrian sat at the defendant's table, his tailored suit perfect, his jaw set like a verdict waiting to happen. But beneath the crisp fabric, his heart hammered with something raw and human, fear, not of losing money, not even reputation, but of losing the only person who had kept him tethered to the world since Isabel died, Clara. She sat between 2 court-appointed observers in the front row, a small figure in a pale yellow dress, legs swinging, clutching the stuffed elephant her mother had given her. Every so often she'd glance at her father, and he'd smile, the kind of smile that hurt to hold. On the other side of the room, Evelyn Hart sat immaculate in black silk, her composure carved from decades of surviving grief. Her attorney, Mr. Faulkner, adjusted his cufflinks and began, "Your Honor, this case isn't about wealth. It's about emotional stability. Mr. Moreau's daughter has lived in an environment of silence and isolation. No school, no peers, only private tutors and staff. We have reason to believe she suffers from chronic anxiety and emotional neglect." Lena sat in the back of the courtroom, unseen by most. Adrian had asked her not to testify. "They'll twist your kindness into a weapon," he'd said. "I won't let them do that." But she couldn't stay away. When the judge asked Adrian to take the stand, he rose, buttoning his jacket with trembling hands that didn't look like a billionaire's anymore. "Mr. Moreau," the judge began, "is it true that since your wife's death, you have kept your daughter isolated from social environments?" "Yes," Adrian said quietly. "I thought I was protecting her." "Protecting her from what?" "From the world that took her mother." A murmur rippled through the room. "Would you agree," the attorney pressed, "that your grief has impaired your ability to provide a normal upbringing for your daughter?" Adrian hesitated. Then, with brutal honesty, he said, "Yes, it has, but not forever." The attorney smiled, a small victory. "And what changed, Mr. Moreau?" Adrian looked toward the back of the courtroom, and his gaze found Lena. She froze under the weight of it. "What changed," he said softly, "was a waitress. She reminded me that silence isn't safety. That love doesn't protect by hiding. It protects by listening." A stunned pause followed. Even Evelyn looked up, startled. "Are you referring to Miss Lena Marin?" "Yes. And what is she to you?" He inhaled slowly. She is kindness. The kind my daughter hadn't seen since her mother passed. Evelyn's attorney raised an eyebrow. And are you in a romantic relationship with this woman? No. Adrian's answer came fast, firm. But I'm not sure the lack of romance makes her any less vital to our lives. Lena's throat burned. She hadn't realized how deeply his words could reach. Mr. Moreau, the judge interrupted gently, your honesty is appreciated, but love alone cannot raise a child. I know, he said quietly, but it can save one. A hush fell. When court adjourned for lunch, Evelyn approached him in the corridor, her expression unreadable. You're eloquent when you finally decide to speak, she said. Was I wrong? He asked. No, she admitted. You were human. He searched her face for anger, but found something closer to exhaustion. I don't want to fight you, Evelyn. Then stop giving the world a reason to doubt you, she said. That woman, she complicates everything. She healed your granddaughter, Adrian replied quietly. You call that a complication? Evelyn's jaw tightened. She's a waitress, Adrian, not a mother. He didn't raise his voice, but his words struck like thunder. And you think titles make better parents? She flinched, just slightly. You sound like Isabel, she whispered. I wish I did, he said. She would have done this better. Evelyn turned away before her composure cracked. After court, Adrian and Lena met in the cafe where they'd first spoken. The same cracked table, the same soft hum of rain on glass. I told you not to come, he said. I told you I would, she answered. He smiled faintly. I might lose her. Not if you keep telling the truth, Lena said. It's the one thing people like Evelyn can't argue against forever. She has power, Lena. So do you. You just forgot it's not the kind you can buy. He looked at her then, really looked, and saw in her eyes the same light he'd once seen in Isabel's. Not the same woman, but the same kind of soul. Why are you doing this? He asked. Because she asked me to be her mommy, Lena said softly. And I couldn't say no, not to her and not to the part of you that still believes she deserves one. He blinked hard, fighting the emotion that rose like tide. You make me believe impossible things. Maybe they're just forgotten things, she replied. The door chimed. A man in a grey suit entered. Faulkner, Evelyn's lawyer. He spotted Adrian and approached, expression careful. There's been a development, he said. Mrs. Hart has requested a recess in the proceedings. Adrian frowned. Why? She wants to meet privately, with you and Miss Marin. Lena's pulse quickened. What for? The lawyer's gaze flickered between them. She said, and I quote, it's time to see whether love can prove what money never could. For the first time that day, Adrian didn't feel fear. He felt something stranger, hope, wrapped in uncertainty. He looked at Lena, and she nodded once. Whatever Evelyn had planned, they would face it together. And somewhere, in a quiet corner of the cafe that smelled like rain and second chances, Clara's drawing lay on the counter, the one with 3 smiling figures under a rainbow. None of them knew yet that the picture would soon become real. The meeting took place in Evelyn Hart's estate, a mansion so still it felt like a museum of grief. Marble floors, portraits in gilded frames, and air perfumed faintly with lavender and formality. Adrian and Lena arrived together, though they barely spoke during the drive. The silence wasn't awkward. It was the kind of quiet that forms before a storm that might change everything. Evelyn greeted them in the drawing room, her posture impeccable, her eyes cold but not cruel. A fire burned low in the hearth, throwing golden light across the polished surfaces. You came, she said, her tone halfway between surprise and expectation. Adrian's voice was calm. You asked for it. I did. Evelyn motioned toward the chairs opposite her. Sit, both of you. Lena obeyed first, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Adrian sat beside her, shoulders tense, jaw tight. Evelyn regarded them for a long moment before speaking again. I want to understand, she said finally, why my granddaughter comes home talking about a waitress as if she were her guardian angel. Lena opened her mouth, but Adrian spoke first. Because she is. Evelyn's gaze flicked to him sharply. I didn't ask you. Lena's voice was soft but steady. Because I listen, Mrs. Hart. That's all Clara ever wanted. Evelyn studied her, head slightly tilted. Do you know what happens when people like you get close to families like ours, Miss Marin? I imagine, Lena replied gently. You start assuming we want something. Evelyn's lips curved faintly, almost a smile. And do you? Lena met her eyes, only to see Clara smile again. For a long moment, the older woman said nothing. The crackling fire filled the silence between them. Then she turned her gaze toward Adrian. You've changed, she said quietly. I don't know whether to thank her or blame her. Maybe neither, he said. Maybe just see what it's doing for Clara. Evelyn sighed, weary. You think this is about hatred, don't you? That I want to steal your daughter, isn't it? Adrian's tone was clipped, defensive. Evelyn looked down at her hands, the diamond ring glinting under the firelight. I buried my daughter, Adrian. You buried your wife. We grieved her differently, but we both lost her. And now every time I see you, I see the man who didn't save her. Lena inhaled sharply, the words slicing the air. Adrian went still. You think I didn't try? I think you shut down after, Evelyn said, voice trembling slightly now. And you let Clara fade into the background of your sorrow. I thought, maybe, I could give her what you couldn't. The tension that had filled the room softened. Evelyn's anger wasn't cruelty. It was love twisted by loss. Lena leaned forward slightly. Mrs. Hart, you're right about one thing. Adrian did close himself off, but not because he didn't love her, because he loved her so much that every reminder felt like drowning. Evelyn's eyes flickered with surprise. And you presume to know that? I don't presume, Lena said quietly. I see it. Every time he looks at Clara. Every time he tries to say her mother's name and can't. The old woman's composure wavered. She turned her gaze to the fire, her voice barely above a whisper. You sound like Isabel. She saw people the way no one else could. Lena smiled softly. Then maybe that's why Clara found me. The silence that followed was long, heavy, and full of ghosts. Evelyn finally rose, moving toward the grand piano by the window. On its lid sat a framed photograph, Isabel in her wedding dress, Adrian beside her, both radiant and alive. Evelyn traced her fingers over the glass. She always wanted a home filled with laughter. After she died, I thought the world had forgotten how. Adrian stood slowly. It didn't. I just stopped letting it in. Evelyn turned to him. Then let me ask you, Adrian, what now? If I drop the case, what do you do next? Keep living in your tower of glass while this woman teaches your daughter to breathe again? No, he said. I'll learn with her. Lena looked up at him, startled by the quiet conviction in his tone. Evelyn's gaze moved between them, the guarded billionaire and the humble waitress, two souls who shouldn't have collided but somehow made sense. Her voice softened. You love her, don't you? Adrian's breath caught. I don't know what to call it, he admitted, but when she walks into a room I stop feeling like I'm drowning. Evelyn nodded slowly, as if seeing something inevitable unfold. And you, Miss Marin? Do you love my son-in-law? Lena hesitated, her pulse loud in her ears. I love what he's becoming, she said finally. I love what Clara brings out in him, and if love means wanting someone to heal, then maybe, yes, I do. The words hung in the air like a confession neither of them was ready for, but both had already lived. Evelyn turned back toward the fire, the decision visible in her face before she spoke it aloud. The case is over. Adrian blinked. You're dropping it? Yes, she met his eyes. But not because you won. Because Clara deserves to see two adults choose compassion over pride. Lena exhaled, relief flooding her chest. Adrian's shoulders dropped, as if a weight years heavy had finally lifted. Evelyn continued, her tone softer than it had been in months. But understand this. If you fail her again, if you let grief consume you once more, I will fight you, Adrian. Not as an enemy, but as a mother who refuses to lose another child. He nodded. You have my word. As they turned to leave, Evelyn stopped Lena at the door. Miss Marin, she said quietly, you remind me that angels don't always wear wings. Sometimes they carry trays. Lena smiled, her eyes glistening. And sometimes, she replied, they sit alone in mansions until someone helps them remember how to love. Evelyn didn't respond, but her hand lingered on Lena's arm for a moment longer than necessary. Outside, as they walked through the rain toward the waiting car, Adrian looked at Lena and said quietly, You changed everything. She shook her head. No, you did. I just held the light while you remembered where to look. He smiled faintly. Then don't let go. And for the first time since Isabel's death, he meant every word. The next few weeks unfolded like the slow thaw of winter. For the first time in years, laughter echoed through Adrian's home. Real, unguarded laughter that didn't sound borrowed or forced. Clara filled the halls with her drawings, her stories, her songs. The house staff, once silent as shadows, began smiling when she ran past them. Lena became part of their rhythm without even realizing it. She'd stop by after her shift, help Clara with her reading, share tea with Adrian in the evenings. They spoke less about business and more about living, about the little things people forget when their hearts go cold. One night, Adrian invited her and Clara to dinner at a small family restaurant by the harbor. It wasn't the kind of place billionaires frequented, no polished marble, no wine lists that needed decoding. Just warm bread, sea breeze, and a band playing soft jazz in the corner. Clara leaned across the table, whispering, "Daddy, can we stay here forever?" Adrian chuckled. "If only it worked that way, sweetheart." Lena smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Maybe forever's not a place," she said. "Maybe it's just the moments we don't rush through." Adrian's gaze lingered on her, the low light catching the amber in her eyes. "You really believe that?" "I have to," she said simply. "Otherwise, all the beauty in the world would belong only to those who can afford it." The words hit deeper than she knew. Adrian had spent years measuring life in profit and performance. Now, here she was, redefining wealth with nothing but sincerity. When the music shifted to a slow, tender melody, Clara tugged at Lena's hand. "Dance with me," she said. Lena laughed softly. "Oh, I'm not sure I remember how." Adrian stood, extending a hand toward her. "Then, let me remind you." She looked up, surprised. Clara grinned and pushed her gently. "Go on, Daddy's not as scary as he looks." They stepped onto the small wooden floor, surrounded by flickering candlelight and murmured conversations. Adrian's hand found hers, firm, warm, hesitant. "I haven't done this in a long time," he admitted quietly. "Neither have I," she said. "Guess we'll have to improvise." As they moved, slowly and uncertainly, something shifted between them. The guarded businessman began to fade, replaced by a man who remembered what connection felt like. Lena's laughter, soft and unassuming, filled the space between their steps. He caught himself watching the way the light touched her hair, the way her smile eased the tightness in his chest. "You make things simple," he murmured. "They were never complicated," she replied. "You just built walls around them." His fingers tightened slightly on hers. "And you're tearing them down." She looked up at him, her voice barely a whisper. Maybe they were never meant to last. For a moment, the world around them blurred. The sound of waves outside, the soft hum of the music, the flicker of gold across her skin. Adrian felt the weight of grief and guilt loosen its grip. Then Clara's giggle broke through the haze. "You're dancing funny," she called. Lena laughed and stepped back. "Your turn," she said, guiding Clara into his arms. Adrian lifted his daughter and twirled her gently, her laughter rising like a melody all its own. Lena stood back, watching, and for a moment she felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Belonging. But even beauty has shadows. As they left the restaurant, a camera flash sliced through the night. A journalist, young, eager, predatory, stepped forward. "Mr. Hero, care to comment on the mystery woman spending every evening with you and your daughter?" Adrian's body stiffened instantly. "Not tonight," but the man pressed on. "The waitress who changed your custody case. Are you two in love?" Lena froze, her breath catching. Adrian's eyes hardened. "You've got 5 seconds to walk away," he said, low and controlled. The reporter smirked. "So that's a yes?" Adrian stepped forward, but Lena caught his arm. "He's not worth it," she whispered. The man snapped one last picture before retreating into the shadows. The flash burned behind her eyes like an omen. On the drive home, Clara slept in the back seat, her small hand curled around her stuffed elephant. Lena stared out the window, the city lights sliding across her reflection like fading dreams. "Don't worry about that," Adrian said. "I'll handle it." She shook her head. "It's not me I'm worried about. It's Clara. She's used to the cameras," he said. "They've been chasing me since before she could walk." "That's the problem," Lena murmured. "She shouldn't have to be used to that." Adrian glanced at her, his tone softening. "You're angry with me." "I'm scared for you," she said quietly. "For both of you. Every time something good starts to grow, the world seems eager to trample it." He sighed. "Then maybe it's time I start protecting what matters." Their eyes met for a long, unspoken moment. Back at the penthouse, as Adrian carried Clara to bed, Lena stood in the doorway watching him tuck the little girl under her blanket. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, whispered something only a father could say, and kissed her forehead. When he turned, Lena was still there. "You really love her," she said softly. "She's my reason," he replied. "And what about yourself?" He hesitated. "I'm learning to find one." Lena nodded slowly. "Then promise me something. Anything. No matter what happens tomorrow, no matter what they write or say, don't let this turn you cold again." He looked at her for a long time before answering. "Not if you stay." The words hung between them, fragile and electric. But before she could reply, her phone buzzed. A message from her manager. You need to come in tomorrow. Reporters have been asking questions. The outside world was already knocking on their door. And as Adrian watched her leave that night, something inside him whispered that peace once again was about to be tested. The morning headlines hit like a storm. Waitress or heiress? Mystery woman linked to Adrian Moreau, caught in late-night dinner with billionaire and daughter. Love beyond money, inside the heart of the world's most private tycoon. Every tabloid, blog and news outlet twisted the story into spectacle. Some painted Lena as a gold digger, others as a savior, but all of them turned her life upside down. By noon, the restaurant where she worked was surrounded by photographers. Customers whispered, some snapping photos when they thought she wasn't looking. Her manager, pale and nervous, called her into the office. "Lena," he said gently, avoiding her eyes, "you've been great here. The customers love you, but this," he pointed toward the window, where camera flashes flickered. "This is bad for business." "I understand," she said quietly. "I'm not firing you," he added quickly, "but maybe you should take some time off. Let things calm down." Time off, the polite version of exile. She nodded, thanked him, and walked out into the chaos. Every flash of light felt like an invasion. By the time she got home, her hands were trembling. The walls of her small apartment felt closer than ever. That night, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was Adrian. "Don't read the news," he said the moment she answered. "I already did." Silence, then his voice softened. "I'm sorry, this is my fault." "No," she said. "This is what happens when worlds like ours collide." "Then I'll make it right." "How? With a press release? With more money?" There was pain in her voice, but not anger. Disappointment. Adrian hesitated. "I'll talk to my PR team. They'll shut this down." "You can't shut down curiosity," she replied. "People don't want the truth. They want a story that fits their idea of us." "Then let me tell them mine." "And what's that?" "That you saved my daughter," he said. "That you saved me." Lena's voice broke slightly. "Then let me go, before you lose everything else." He froze. "You don't mean that." "I do," she whispered. "For Clara's sake, for yours, I have to step away." He said her name once, softly, as if saying it might make her stay, but the line went quiet. The next morning, she was gone. No word, no forwarding address. Just a note left on the marble counter of his penthouse. "Tell Clara she's stronger than she knows. Tell her she can be anything, even happy." Adrian searched everywhere. Her apartment was empty, her phone disconnected. Even Evelyn didn't know where she'd gone. For the first time, all his influence meant nothing. Days turned into weeks. Clara asked about her constantly, her drawings now filled with tearful stick figures instead of rainbows. "Did she stop loving us?" she asked one night, her voice trembling. Adrian knelt beside her. "No, sweetheart. Sometimes people leave to protect the ones they love." "But who's protecting her?" The question struck deeper than he could answer. That night, he sat alone in his office, staring at a photo Clara had drawn months ago, the one of him, her and Lena under a sun that seemed too big for the paper. He realized what Lena had meant about forever not being a place. It was a choice, a decision to keep showing up, even when it hurts, and he wasn't ready to let go. 3 weeks later, he got a call from a small coastal town 3 hours away. One of his security staff, who had been searching quietly, found her working at a children's community center. No cameras, no attention, just laughter echoing from the old building. He didn't tell Clara or Evelyn. He simply got in his car and drove. When he arrived, the late afternoon sun cast long golden streaks across the ocean. The sound of children playing drifted from the open windows. He saw her before she saw him, kneeling beside a little boy, helping him color a paper boat. She was smiling, calm, alive. He stepped closer, heart pounding. When she finally looked up, surprise flashed across her face. "Adrian," he smiled faintly. "You disappeared. I needed to breathe," she said. "And you didn't think I needed to." She exhaled slowly. "You have Clara. She's your world." She was. "But now she's my reason. And you're the one who gave her back to me." Lena shook her head. "You don't need me anymore. Maybe not for the same reasons," he said quietly. "But I still do." The children's laughter carried between them like a reminder of what mattered. He took a step closer. "You once told me forever is made of moments we don't rush through. So I won't rush this, but I won't let it end here either." Lena looked at him for a long time, her eyes full of the same conflict that had haunted him for months. "Adrian," she whispered, "the world we come from doesn't forgive people like me." "Then let's stop living for the world," he said. and start living for the people in it. Behind him, the sound of the sea rolled like applause. She smiled faintly. "You're terrible at giving up," he smiled back. "You taught me that too." And in that fragile, perfect moment, with sunlight glinting off the waves and laughter threading through the air, something in both of them began to heal. But neither of them knew that the hardest choice was still to come, because love, when tested by the weight of the world, doesn't just ask you to feel, it asks you to prove. By the time Adrian and Lena returned to the city, the scandal had softened but not disappeared. The headlines had faded into the archives of fleeting gossip, replaced by fresher, louder dramas. Yet for those who remembered, the story of the billionaire and the waitress still lingered, a modern fairy tale wrapped in cynicism. Adrian didn't care anymore. He'd changed the rules of his own world. Meetings no longer consumed his every hour. Deals no longer defined his worth. His penthouse, once sterile and silent, had become a home again. But rebuilding peace didn't mean it was easy. There were whispers at board meetings, judgmental stares at galas, cautious smiles from those who wanted to test his patience. And every time, Lena's quiet strength anchored him. She didn't fight back or correct people's opinions. She simply lived in truth. It was Clara who healed fastest. With Lena back, the little girl bloomed like spring after a long frost. Her drawings filled every wall, her laughter every morning. Yet sometimes, late at night, she would crawl into Adrian's lap and whisper, "Don't let her go again." "I won't," he'd promise. "Not ever." One rainy afternoon, as thunder rolled softly over the skyline, Adrian found Lena sitting on the floor of the playroom, surrounded by books and paper. Clara had fallen asleep beside her, head resting on her shoulder. "You look peaceful," he said quietly. Lena smiled. "She makes it easy." He knelt beside them, studying the way Clara's fingers curled around hers even in sleep. "You know," he said, "you changed everything I believed about strength." "How so?" "I used to think it was about control," he said, "about how much you could hold together before it broke. But you showed me it's about letting go and still showing up anyway." Her eyes softened. "You didn't need me to teach you that, Adrian." "Maybe not," he said, "but I needed you to remind me." For a moment, the only sound was the rain against the windows. Then Lena spoke, her voice quiet. "Evelyn called me." He looked up sharply. "What did she want?" "She invited me to dinner." His brow furrowed. "Are you sure that's a good idea?" "She said she wants to talk about Clara, about you." He hesitated. "She's not easy to face." "I know," Lena said gently, "but maybe she's trying to change too." That evening, Lena went alone to Evelyn's home. The old mansion seemed softer now, less fortress, more memory. Evelyn greeted her at the door, no longer cold but tired, as if she'd finally made peace with her ghosts. They sat by the same fireplace where months ago Evelyn had judged her so harshly. "I wanted to apologize," Evelyn said, hands trembling slightly as she poured tea. "I treated you like a threat, when you were the only person giving my granddaughter what she needed." Lena shook her head. "You don't owe me an apology." "Yes, I do," Evelyn said firmly. "I spent years trying to control everything. My daughter's choices, my son-in-law's grief, my granddaughter's future. But the more I tried to protect them, the more I lost them. I thought money gave me power. Turns out, it only gave me fear." Lena smiled faintly. "Love doesn't fit inside contracts, Mrs. Hart. It has to be lived." Evelyn's eyes misted. "You sound like Isabel. Maybe she's the one who sent me," Lena said softly. They both laughed quietly, tears not far behind. Before she left, Evelyn touched her arm. "You belong in their lives," she said. "I can see that now." When Lena returned home, Adrian was pacing the living room, worry written across his face. "You're back," he said, relief evident in his tone. "How could I not be?" she teased. He smiled. "What did she say?" "That she's ready to forgive," Lena replied, "and she wants you to try too." Adrian's jaw tightened slightly, but then he nodded. "Maybe I'm ready." Over the next few weeks, something remarkable happened. The three of them began to share space without conflict. Evelyn visited often, bringing books for Clara, memories for Adrian, and quiet understanding for Lena. The world outside their little circle still whispered, but the noise no longer mattered, until one night, the kind that changes everything again. It was late. Adrian was in his study, reviewing documents for a new foundation he was funding, one dedicated to children's education. Lena was in the kitchen cleaning up after dinner when she heard Clara crying upstairs. She ran up, heart pounding, to find the little girl clutching her chest, gasping for breath. "Clara," she called, kneeling beside her. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Clara couldn't speak. Her small body trembled. Adrian was there within seconds. He scooped her into his arms, panic breaking through the calm he'd worked so hard to build. "Call an ambulance," he said, his voice cracking. The ride to the hospital blurred. Sirens, rain, red lights reflected in wet streets. In the waiting room, Adrian's hands shook uncontrollably. He hadn't felt that powerless since the night Isabel died. Lena sat beside him, gripping his hand tightly. "She's strong," she said, even though her own voice quivered. "She's going to be okay." He turned to her, eyes raw. "If anything happens to her, I'll—" "Stop," she said, cutting him off gently. "Don't speak fear into the world. Speak love instead." Hours passed. Finally, the doctor emerged. "She's stable," he said. "A severe allergic reaction. She'll need monitoring, but she's going to be fine." Adrian closed his eyes, a sound escaping him, something between relief and prayer. When they entered the room, Clara was asleep, a small oxygen tube at her nose. Adrian brushed her hair back, his hand trembling. "I thought I lost her," he whispered. Lena laid a hand on his shoulder. "You didn't." He looked up at her then, eyes filled with something deeper than gratitude. "You keep saving us, Lena. Every time I forget how to live, you remind me." She smiled softly. "Maybe that's what love really is, reminding each other, again and again." He stood, and for the first time, he didn't hold back. He pulled her into his arms, holding her like the world outside didn't exist. It wasn't a grand confession or a cinematic kiss. It was something quieter, truer. A man who had lost everything finding home in someone who had nothing to give but her heart. And as they stood there, surrounded by the rhythmic sound of Clara's breathing, both of them knew life had just handed them another beginning. But beginnings always come with one final test. Morning sunlight streamed through the hospital window, washing everything in soft gold. Clara stirred awake, her small fingers brushing against her father's sleeve. "Daddy," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Did I scare you?" Adrian's voice cracked as he smiled. "More than anyone ever has, sweetheart." She turned her head and saw Lena dozing in a chair beside the bed, her hair falling across her face. "She stayed all night," Clara said quietly. "She always does," Adrian replied, his eyes lingering on Lena with quiet awe. Clara reached for his hand. "Daddy, when we go home, can she come with us?" He hesitated, not because he doubted the answer, but because the weight of that simple question hit deeper than words. "I hope she will," he said softly, "for good this time." Later that morning, Lena woke to find Adrian standing by the window, looking out at the skyline. There was something different about him, a stillness, a surrender. "She's getting better," Lena said, stretching. He nodded. "You know, when you first walked into that restaurant, I didn't even see you. I saw another distraction, another inconvenience." Lena smiled faintly. "You were very good at pretending you didn't need anyone." "I was," he admitted. "But then you came along and ruined all of that." She raised an eyebrow. "Ruined?" He turned to her, eyes soft. "Ruined the walls, ruined the silence, ruined the life I thought was enough." Lena's heart tightened. "Adrian!" He stepped closer, voice low and steady. "I don't know what kind of man I was before you, but I know what kind I want to be now. The kind who listens, the kind who shows up, the kind who doesn't let fear dictate who he loves." Her breath caught. "You're saying that because you're tired." He smiled. "Then I must be the luckiest tired man alive." Behind them, Clara stirred again, blinking at the light. "Are you two talking about love again?" she asked, a little grin spreading across her face. Lena laughed softly. "Maybe." "Good," Clara said sleepily, "because love makes people better." Weeks passed, and life began to mend itself in small, beautiful ways. Clara recovered completely, her energy returning with each sunrise. Evelyn visited often, gentler now, watching the three of them together with quiet contentment. The house that once echoed with loneliness now hummed with warmth and music. One evening they gathered for dinner in the garden. Fireflies glowed between the roses, and the city lights shimmered like reflections of their laughter. Clara looked up from her plate. "Daddy, is this what happy families do?" Adrian smiled. "I think so." "Then we're one," she said with certainty. Lena reached across the table, her hand brushing his. "She's right." Adrian's thumb grazed her knuckles gently. "For the first time in a long time, I believe it." As night deepened, Clara dozed off on Lena's lap, her small frame nestled in safety. Adrian leaned back, watching them under the soft glow of the garden lights. "Do you ever think about how it all began?" he asked quietly. "All the time," Lena replied. "A broken man, a waitress who didn't know how to stop caring, and a little girl who refused to give up on love." He chuckled softly. "Sounds like a miracle." She looked at him, eyes glimmering. "It was never luck, Adrian. It was choice. You chose to change. You chose love." He reached over, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "And I'll keep choosing it, every day for both of you." The sound of the city faded into the background, replaced by the quiet heartbeat of something eternal. Connection, forgiveness, and the kind of love that doesn't need to be announced to be real. As the moonlight touched their faces, Lena whispered, "Forever isn't a promise of time. It's a promise of presence." Adrian nodded slowly, eyes never leaving hers. "Then I'll be here, always." And for once, it didn't sound like a vow made out of guilt or desperation. It sounded like truth, in that golden silence, surrounded by the woman who had taught him compassion and the child who had taught him hope. Adrian Moreau realized that the greatest fortune he'd ever gain couldn't be counted in dollars, but in moments like this. The garden lights flickered gently, like stars bowing down to a love that had survived everything that tried to break it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because some stories remind us that love doesn't need perfection, only people brave enough to start again.